I almost forgot the microphone. Hopefully it works. I have to do it backwards because I don't have anyone to read off to me. As if anyone wants to ask questions, I won't be able to see it if I have it flipped around. So I'm sorry, it's backwards, but this is Teen Talk. I'm Jenny, and this is episode number 1. So I guess let's just get right into it and talk about our objectives and what we're even doing. I have a dry erase board. Not that it makes me, maybe it does make me more official. I don't know. But basically, like by the end of this, we want to know, like, understand what exactly is Teen Talk, why we're even doing it. And we want to know what health is and healthy. And we want to recognize that physical, mental, social, environmental, spiritual, etc. health are all part of the greater being of health. And we're going to learn about, since this is for teens, we're going to learn about teen behaviors and why it's not just acting out, why it's actually physically ingrained in us in the developing brain. So we're going to talk about the brain. You're going to hear stuff about, big things would be the prefrontal cortex, the limbic system, and of course, hormones, because everything seems like hormones. And there's a glare. Oh, look, I can make you like animals or something. Here's a dog. Anyway, so why are we doing this? Why not? And who am I? Why you should even listen to me? So the purpose of health education is, when you're in high school, is to give you a better understanding of health, help you make better decisions, introduce you to the body, etc. I happen to think that health is one of the most important things because everything that we do in life is related to our health. And people who seem to have everything in the world will tell you that they are nothing without health. When you see sick people, they will wish they were healthy. And all of a sudden, nothing matters when you're not well. So health is super important. And the purpose of Teen Talk is to kind of fill that void, because in high school, in public schools, teachers have curriculums that they need to follow. They are only allowed to say certain things. I am not a public high school teacher, not a public school teacher at all, and I have no guardrails. And why should you even bother listening to me? Well, in my other life, I was a permanent sub, as in like a long-term sub, and I did teach health. I taught middle school at one point. I taught high school at one point. I also taught at the health at the local community college. But that was my other life. And then I went to nursing school and I became an RN. I was at the bedside, and then I got my master's, and then I got my doctorate. So I do have a doctorate in nursing practice. I've been in emergency medicine for over 20 years, as an EMT first, so on an ambulance going to calls, then as a bedside nurse in the ER, then as a nurse practitioner in the ER. So I've seen a lot, I've done a lot, and the beauty of what I get to do is I have done everything from pre-life, pre-first breath, to death. I have delivered a baby. I have held the hand of someone dying. I have tried to prevent someone from dying. And I've dealt with the aftermath of when someone dies. So I've seen a very large scope of things. And when you work in emergency, you see people at their most vulnerable, and it gives you a very different perspective of the world and people. So I have the experience and I have the education to back it up when it comes to health. I also, for what it's worth, like not much maybe, but I did used to also coach, like again in my other life. So I did all that stuff too. All right. Oh, and we're also I'm going to show you how this can relate to a nursing model as well. So if anyone wants to join the chat, I have this up too, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to see what's happening or not. But if you have questions, you can ask. Part of what we're doing came at requests. I have patients, and patients have teenagers, and sometimes teenagers ask me questions and I give them answers. And sometimes teenagers need a safe space to go to when they don't want to ask a teacher or a parent. And so I can be a safe space. And I know a lot of people, so if we ever get like guests on here, you can also ask them. So the first question would be, so let me back up. If you have questions, ask them. If you want to email teentalk@aliveandthrivinghealthcare.com. I will not say your name. You're not even going to know when the question comes up as I'm talking. I'm just incorporating some of the questions that were asked to me in a teaching moment. We do need better lighting. So if someone also wants to sponsor us, that would be cool too. So what is health? What is health and why does that even matter? What is healthy? We, as a society, put a lot of pressure on what someone looks like to determine whether or not they're healthy or they're in good health. But that is not always the case. Someone can look unhealthy and be perfectly healthy based on society norms, and someone can look like they have it all together and not be one bit healthy. Weight is always this thing that comes up over and over, and I think it's a horrible measurement once you get past puberty. It's a horrible measurement of health, and we don't actually even use that in our clinic. We only use that as one of the pieces, but it's more of a body composition. Someone can look really healthy and have very high blood pressure. That's why it's called the silent killer. Typically, teenagers don't have it, but we are seeing more and more young people and more teenagers with high blood pressure because of other environmental factors. Healthy is not just what you look like, but it's how you act. It's what's around you. It's all the different parts and pieces of your life that affect your life and your health. So, well, I guess black's not going to be my color, huh? So when we're talking about health, I particularly like the nursing model. I didn't know about it before I became a nurse, but I like the nursing model much more than I like the medical model, because the nursing model of health is patient-centered. So in this case, if we think of it as student-centered, since we're doing teens. So you've got your teen, your person, and that is the middle. That is the focus. And more so in the medical model, when you're looking at health, you're looking at systems, more of like organ systems physically. But in the nursing model, it's a little bit different. It's more of a patient-centered, but we also look at all these things around it. So we have our teen, and then what's the major circle right outside of it? It's going to be your best friends, your other friends, like acquaintances. It's going to be your family, like your your primary family, like the people that you live with. And then, of course, you can have your extended family. And these people greatly affect your health, especially as a teenager. Because as a teenager, you're really reliant on grown-ups and other people in your life. But this isn't where it doesn't stop here. Like, there's more to it. So then we have the next layer. So maybe it's your school, or if you're on a team, if you belong to like a church or a religious, also the world's worst speller. These are other things that you participate in on a regular basis, and these are also going to affect your health. But wait, there's more. So outside of that, there's, again, things you don't necessarily have control over as a teenager, but you need to know that this really does affect your health. So you've got your community, like your neighborhood where you live. So it's like where you live. And I didn't understand this as much in nursing school when we were making care plans, but I understand it more, and I think it's really important for teenagers. Where you live, and then the environment around where you live. So clean water, safe streets, low gun violence, all those things part of where you live affects your health and the bigger picture. So that is a really good thing to remember. And I like pictures. I'm very visual. So if you put yourself at the center, all these things affect what you do. And why this is even more important when you're making decisions is because if you look at developmental psychology, and Erik Erikson, who's one of the big theorists of that time, he's got the different, I think there's 8 stages of psychosocial development, and ages like 12 through 18 mostly are in stage 5, which is the identity versus confusion. So you're coming out of stage 4 where you are learning. Stage 4 is, I have it written down, industry versus inferiority. So this is when teachers and parents are really important, and they're building you up, and they're saying good job, and they're teaching you, and you're building your confidence. And then you get to age 12. So pre-adolescent, now into adolescent. And if you have that sense of confidence, you feel like you go to the next stage well. And the next stage is so important because this is where you become your sense of self and your belief system starts to form. But the big difference here is that we're looking at you here is the big difference is that your parents and teachers aren't the most important people anymore. Your most important people now are your friends, your peers, the people around you, the people your own age that you're around. So all of those mean girls and boys who say negative things, it starts affecting you more. And this can be a really big issue because as you're trying to develop your personal identity, if you're surrounded by people who are very negative, you're going to have a harder time becoming who you are and getting grounded in your beliefs and your values. And what happens when you go to the next stage, which is 18-ish, and kind of depends, if you aren't grounded in who you are, you're going to have a more difficult time in the next stage of early adulthood, where this is your intimacy versus isolation stage. And this is where deep, meaningful relationships are supposed to take place. So in Erik Erikson's psychosocial developmental stages, each one is upon the other. And the big take home here is that as a teenager, everything matters more when it comes from your peers. And that's really hard because your body is also developing differently. Then you don't have the brain of an adult. You may be mature for your age, or you may look older than you are, but your brain is still developing. And that is so important to remember because your brain, the adolescent brain, although it's mostly like size-wise pretty big and full-grown at this point, by the time you didn't hit puberty, the adolescent brain is set up for emotional turbulence. And this means risk-taking. It's set up for risk-taking. And this is a really big question that came up over and over and again, like taking risk, what you should do, how not to do it. And I'm going to try to explain why your body is set up. It's not just bad behavior. We already know from developmental psychology that our peers are our number one influence, and what they say to us matters. But now, if we're looking at the brain and the actual physical development of the brain, we know that the adolescent brain is set up for emotional turbulence, risk-taking, and this hunger for novelty, the here and the now, without thinking forward. Anyone have any idea when brain development begins? Anyone? Technically, preconception. So before, some people would say in the womb, yeah, but even before that, and not just the mother, the father's DNA and the mother's DNA. And I say that as a sperm and an egg donor, not necessarily what the social parts of it. DNA is affected by what you do. So if you are smoking, drinking heavily, using drugs, under a lot of stress, you're changing your DNA. Of course, like what's expressed is what's expressed. This is what I look like. This is what it is. But preconception, your DNA is going to change and be affected based on your choices you make. So keep that in mind down the road when you start planning a family or whatever you do. Keep that in mind, that someone who is constantly smoking marijuana is going to have less good DNA to pass along for developing brain health. Someone who drinks heavily is going to have not as great DNA that they'll pass along for brain health. So it starts before conception, which is wild to think. Wild, absolutely wild. And then it doesn't stop until 20s, like mid-20s. That's when your brain, yes, we know puberty, it's like the size, like I have a brain somewhere. Here, brain, my little guy. So it's full grown by the time you're in your mid-20s. But the adolescent brain is undergoing so many transformations, and the neural connections are being either strengthened or the opposite, being cut short. And this is based on the neural connections are changed and challenged by experiences that you're having, by what you're using and what you're doing to develop that part of your brain. There's a myelination process going on. This myelination is for processing the speed at which we think, decision-making, coordination. And the very last part of your brain to develop is the prefrontal cortex. And this doesn't get developed until, again, your 20s. In adults, this is the control center. It's up in here. It's at the front of your brain. It's the prefrontal cortex. As an adult, in your developed brain, this is your control center. As a teenager, you don't have a fully developed control center. Again, you may be mature for your age, but your brain isn't there yet. Your brain's just not there yet. And this is important for your executive function. So decision-making, suppressing inappropriate behavior, focusing in your attention, it's helps to evaluate the different risks and predicting outcomes. Again, teenagers aren't thinking that. It's not your fault. It's your brain. Your brain just hasn't gotten there yet. So this is why teens they typically struggle with like long-term planning, time management, not thinking about consequences, and engaging in risky behaviors. Again, the big hot topic. And so I'll give you the definition of risky behavior, and if anyone wants to shoot it into the chat, you can shoot it into the chat of what is a risky behavior. So risky behaviors are behaviors with uncertain, negative, or harmful consequences or outcomes. And don't really think about those long term, especially as a teenager. Like, so some of the risky behaviors are like smoking. Like, I'm young, I'm going to go smoke, not a big deal. It's not going to be a habit. And I won't think about long term because it's just not crossing my brain. My brain's not developed to think that way. So what you're not thinking about is long term, how that's going to affect your health. It's going to affect your lungs, your skin, your blood vessels, hypertension, brain cells, cognitive ability. It's going to affect all those things down the road. There's nothing wrong with vanity at Alive and Thriving. We do aesthetics. You can tell the smokers. Working in the ER, I can tell the smokers. It gets to a certain age where I can look at someone who's been in their 60s and been smoking for a long time and be like, that's a smoker. Watching someone not be able to breathe is a horrible, horrible, horrible thing. Horrible. The best I can come up with, and I don't mean just asthma, I mean like long-term consequences of poor decisions and risky behaviors. So if you've ever gone swimming and you're underwater, and there's that split second that feels like an eternity where you're running, you're underwater, you're running out of breath, and you're trying to get to the top, and you don't feel like you're going to make it. That feeling, but don't let it stop. And that's how I can imagine it feels watching some of these people struggle to breathe. So other risk behaviors, vaping. I hate vaping. Look, vaping does horrible things to your lungs. We don't have all of the research and the data like we do on cigarette smoking and tobacco smoking. Vaping does horrible things to your lungs. Horrible, horrible, horrible. You can basically get burned lungs from vaping. Thing about vaping with it, so I don't condone, I think smoking is one of the worst things you can do to your body. But when you smoke a cigarette, you smoke it, you're done, go about your day. And maybe you smoke 3, 5, some people smoke half a pack, whatever. With vaping, a lot of people, instead of the 10 minutes it takes to smoke a cigarette, and that's that relaxation time that people say they feel, with vaping, you hit it once and you're done, but you don't have that downtime. So then you hit it again. And now you just keep hitting a vape pen and you're doing horrible things to your lungs and the rest of your body. But you're not going to feel it right away. So you're going to keep doing it. Because again, brain's not thinking long term. Not your fault. But as adults and grown-ups who've been through it and seen it, it's our job and our duty to inform you of these things and hope to guide you in the right way. So what happens? So there are so many different risky behaviors. There's so many. With teenagers, a lot of it is more sex, drugs, alcohol, smoking. There's a lot of peer pressure involved. And we're going to get into that too. So first of all, if you don't want to do something, don't do it. Don't let people peer pressure you into it. A lot of times when people are mean or ugly towards others or hurtful, they usually have something else going on, that they're unhappy with themselves or something in their life. And it comes out in ugly, ugly ways towards others. That is the truth, teenagers and adults. So if you do choose to vape, who do you tell? This is a really tough question because everyone has different relationships with their parents. If you have a good relationship with your parent, you can go to one of them. If you have a teacher or an auntie or a friend's parent that you trust, someone older, you can go to them. And usually when someone would go to them would be out of regret, being like, look, I did this. I wish I didn't do it. It was terrible. I don't ever want to do it again. Many teenagers, as a nurse, we learn to avoid the words never, all, always, all, the words that basically have definitive, what's the word? Like the alls, the 100%. Most teenagers make some kind of poor decision. And you need to know that it's not the end of the world. And there's always a way to fix things. With that being said, know that poor decisions and risky behaviors are not without consequence. Whether that's ruining a friendship, breaking trust, physical health. If you regret something and you need to talk to someone, it sounds cheesy as all get out, but a trusted adult. You can find a trusted adult. And now you know, and they may not like me for telling you this, but now that you know that yes, you need to take responsibility. You need to take responsibility for your actions. You need to take your consequences. But your body is not ready yet. Your brain isn't fully developed yet. This isn't about lack of intelligence. Teens don't make bad decisions because of lack of intelligence. It's your brains aren't developed yet. And this is another reason why if I could tell teenagers to not smoke, not drink, don't do drugs, eat well, get sleep, because your brain is still developing. And the teenage brain has an incredible capacity for learning and learning new things. Again, why I love public school is because you have so many opportunities to learn different things. Even if you're not artsy, take an art class. You don't know the first thing about music, take a music class. Their shop class, some schools have it, like take it. You will not regret learning something. You will never regret a new skill. Your brain is just so ready to learn and absorb because it's still developing and those neurons are firing and making connections. And on top of that, with all of this risky business, you also have your limbic system, which is your brain's emotional center. And you've got this mismatch between your prefrontal cortex that was up there before and your limbic system. So your reasoning, your rationale, your thinking isn't completely developed. And now you've got this limbic system that's in overdrive that is making you highly emotional. You're highly sensitive to stimulation, to rewards, to social cues. And now, remember, back to developmental psychology, is that we, as teens, our peers are so important to us, and their opinions of us and how they judge us is so important. And so with this firing limbic system that's in overdrive, you're overstimulated and very sensitive to stress and to criticism and to any social rejection. So did I say that right? Rejection. I didn't feel like it came out. So you want your peers to accept you, and that's important to you as you're trying to figure out who you are, as your brain decision-making center is not developing. And now you've got all of these emotions that are just firing off. It's in overdrive. Your dopamine activity is peaked in your teenage years. Dopamine is that, like, it gets released when something good happens. So sometimes you get chasing like a dopamine reaction, like even like sugar can have the same effect as like dopamine. It's that feel good receptor. And what happens is it makes your rewarding experiences even more rewarding and very powerful. And in the teenage years, having it that powerful can have, which is great because, you're trying to, for good things, like, sure, it feels good. So you did it. Like, you got all your work done on time. That felt good. Little dopamine. Yay. But it can have the opposite effect. If you get into that negative feedback loop of a dopamine hit, especially when we're talking about the risk taking, it can increase your susceptibility to anyone? Addiction. So in those teenage years, when this isn't working right, our emotions are over the place, we've gotten dopamine at its peak, that how loosey-goosey you feel with alcohol, your hits off that dopamine, and you want to keep going back to it. So if, looking at yourself, if this isn't solid around you, as you're trying to develop who you are and become who you are, you're at greater risk for negative things like addiction, because of the brain. It's the developing brain and the physicalities of what's happening. So now you've got your prefrontal cortex, you've got your limbic system, you're in stage 5 of Erik Erikson's psychosocial developmental stages. You want your peers to like you. Can't really make great decisions because you're not thinking long-term consequences. You've got this limbic system in overdrive telling you want to feel good. So you're starting to see and partake in things you normally wouldn't have as you're trying to get this belief system going. And then we're going to throw hormones. Adolescence is all about hormones. Estrogen and testosterone have entered the chat. Yay. So now, not only did you want, I'm saying this from a female perspective, not only do you want your girlfriends to like you, but now they're boys. And there is a sexual attraction and increased, again, we're in this increased sensitivity to your social dynamics. And does he like me? I want him to like me. And then what do I look like? Does he like what I look like? Am I funny enough? Am I smart enough? Am I too smart? All of these things, like, am I cool enough? Like, we, as a teenager, it's a little bit different now because of the World Wide Web. I like to say the World Wide Web. I also like to say interweb. So back in my day, we had chat rooms and you could go in discussions and there were horrible stories of people meeting up. And it just has increased and increased and increased with all different social media and text messaging and how, again, back in my day, like if maybe you were friends with people from a different school, but really for the most part, you hung out with the people you went to school with. Girls and boys dated each other in your same school. It was rare to have someone as from the outside world. And now that's changed a little bit. But anyway, you're spend 6, 7, 8 hours a day with the same people your age, going through all the same things. You've got hormones now. Boys and girls are starting to look like older and developing parts and pieces and pheromones and body hair and all of the things. And now you've got, on top of all of this other stuff, now you have to deal with like sexuality and attraction. So there's that, which we're talking risky behavior. So I will say this firmly all of the time. Sex is not a bad thing. Sex when you don't want it is a very bad thing. Not everyone is having sex. You don't have to have sex, especially as a teenager. No one should ever make you have sex. No one should coerce you to have sex. Oh, come on. If you like me, what? No. And this, again, is part of your health and part of why you finding your sense of self and belief system, surrounding by people who support you, is so important. Say no. Boys and girls, don't feel peer pressured to do it. I know there's some of the questions, I'm on a tangent now, but questions, we were talking risky business of like, how far is it, how far, something like, how far should you go with a boy? I don't have the answer to that question. I don't. My answer to you is be safe. Do not ever, this or any other topic, do not put yourself in danger. Do not put anyone else in danger. Do not hurt yourself or hurt anyone else. And you need to protect yourself. Because when we have this not working, emotions all over the place, now hormones, people say things and they're going to tell you things to make you do things. But you have to have a good sense of self and to be able to say no. And yes, you're going to experiment. It's going to happen. But it's got to be on your terms. I don't care if you're a boy or a girl. I don't care how you identify. I don't care. Welcome to the ER. I don't care. What I care about is that anything you do is because you want to do it. And you're not hurting yourself or anyone else. That is my simple answer. And we'll get into that later when we do a different type. But this is just risky business in general. But that is never, I will never not say that enough. When I see patients in the ER and they try to explain things to me, I'm like, I don't care. I don't care. I don't care who you are, what you look like. I care what parts and pieces you have, what parts and pieces you were born with, and how I can help you. That's it. But when it comes to sex, you need to only do what you want to do with who you want to do it, when you want to do it. Nothing else. Don't put yourself or anyone else in harm's way. Don't hurt yourself or anyone else. And if you don't want to, you don't have to. Not everyone's having sex. We're going to hop into social media from our hormones. One more thing about hormones. Another thing about hormones is with all these body things happening in your teenage years, there's a natural shift in the circadian rhythm. And I think sometimes adults forget that they were once teenagers. And the shift in the circadian rhythm is because your body naturally produces melatonin, but now produces it later. So going to bed is later. Waking up is later. And it's more of a shift. So unfortunately, in schools, some of them start very early. So that's really hard for teenagers to get up and be awake and get ready to go. So they're going to bed late. Now they have to get up early, hit school. So now we've got sleep deprivation. And sleep deprivation leads to poor decision making, inattentiveness. Is that the word? Their attention span isn't as great. And it's harder to just think and academically be good at what you're doing. And now we also have technology. People have iPads and cell phones, and you're watching me on YouTube. You should watch me on YouTube. But we've got two major issues. One, physically, you've got like the lights and you're staying up late, and now you're staying up later than you should, and you've got sleep deprivation, and we got all that. Number two, remember what we said about the limbic system and that dopamine feedback. So if you're on social media and you post something and someone likes it, that feels good. When someone puts something positive, that feels good. And now you're in a loop. I guess this would be positive at this point because you're like, yeah, this feels good, except you're doing more. And you're doing more because you're going after that hit. You want that dopamine hit over and over again because it feels good. And remember, teenage years, dopamine is in highest activity levels it's going to be at. So you're in this positive dopamine loop, right? Except now you're getting compulsive behaviors because you want more and you want more and you want more. And you have a shorter attention span, and then you get a negative. Now, if someone says something not nice to you, or people at school start making fun of you, we're back to our developmental stages. So now it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good anymore. And now those, even though they're being mean and they're not being nice at all, and they probably have not a leg to stand on, and they're probably have something else going on in their life to make them a negative Nancy, it doesn't feel good. And it can be very hurtful. So social media, and the other thing, we said the sleep deprivation, staying on too late. We've got the negative feedback loop of the dopamine hit and trying over and over and over to get that. The other thing is that comparison. Social media is fake. And I know that. And I'm a grown-ass adult. And it still hurts sometimes when I see other people who might be prettier or more successful or got more attention, or they got the nicer car. I'm an adult. I'm a grown-ass adult. I'm way out of my teenage years. And it sucks. So as a teenager whose decision-making isn't there, whose limbic system is in overdrive, super sensitive to everything, with hormones flaring all about, comparison is the thief of joy. I don't care how old you are. But it's particularly difficult as a teenager. So when you start comparing yourself to others and you start thinking of yourself negatively, and why not me, or why can't I have that? Why don't they like me? You start having more anxiety and depression, negative body image issues. It's fake. It's fake. All of those airbrush swimsuit models, it's fake. They're all fake. I have a ring light because I was trying to get some light on me. But if you look at me in regular light, in daylight, in a softened ring light, I'm going to look different. If I stand like this, I'm wearing black. You can't really see anything anyway. And it's like a shift dress. If I stand like this versus this versus this versus this, or shoulders, I'm going to look different. I'm going to look different. Social media is fake. It's fake. So, to recap, I'm very passionate about health, if you couldn't tell. And I'm very passionate about two things in my life, I would say, aside from health. As grown-ups, it's our responsibility to protect and look out for children. And teenagers, whether you like it or not, you're still children. You are not an adult. Don't rush it. The adult world is not as great as you think it is. Don't rush it. Number two, animals. My Augie doggy is around somewhere. You might have seen him at the beginning. I don't know. Animals and children look to us for direction and guidance, and it is our responsibility to protect them at all costs. And to the teenagers, this is for you, and I hope you found something useful. And I hope I answered some of those questions that were written into me. Please send more questions. I can't remember what next. In 2 weeks, we'll do it again. I can't remember what they are. Here's the thing about high school no one tells you. You don't want to peak in high school. You won't never want to peak in life, in my opinion. Every stage of life is different. And I touched on Erik Erikson and the developmental stages. Different psychologists and sociologists have different stages. But there are many different stages of life. Being an adolescent is really, really, really hard. With the best support systems, the best parents, the best family, the best teachers, enough money to not worry, being a teenager is really hard. If you are missing any of those things, food insecurity, if you have food insecurity, housing insecurity, as a teenager, I had no idea how many people I went to school with had food insecurities or housing insecurities, how many people in my school district, how many kids were homeless because they didn't have a steady house to go to every single night. Even if you have all of the things that you should have, being a teenager is very hard. It should be wonderful, but it is hard. Your body is growing and developing and fighting itself. Your prefrontal cortex and your limbic system are basically like, let's go, and fighting each other. It is very difficult. And I will do my best to be the safe space for teenagers, even parents. I ask the adults, the grown-ups, you can watch this later, but as far as chat goes, time is for any teenagers. So they're the ones I want to hear from. So please let's respect their space and let them have their time. But if you want to watch later and learn a thing or two, it's fine. Your teenagers aren't just little shits. Some of them are. But no, teenagers are really cool. Teenagers have an uncanny resilience and creativity in their brain because as their brains are developing, more so than any adult ever will. And that's just fact. We have facts, we have opinions. That's fact. How the brain develops is fact. So thank you for joining me. I hope to be back in 2 weeks. I hope you learned something. I hope I answered some of the questions. And I am more than happy to answer any other questions or go over. I have this whole thing planned out, but if there is a hot topic you want me to go over from a health and science and life point of view, I am more than happy to do so. So thanks for joining me. I'll see you in a couple weeks.